Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey with Married at First Sight. Let's get to the show.
Because I told Pastor Cal, I really like Brandon. I thought we had a lot in common. I could clearly see why the experts matched us.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys saw me, the lovey-dovey Brandon. I obviously, was all over him because I really liked him. But it's you're so sweet. Why can't you be that way when the cameras come around? You look... Not even towards me, just towards production. You just look so abrasive, aggressive, difficult. And that's somebody I don't want to be married to. I want to be married to the sweet, kind Brandon, so just be the sweet, kind Brandon you are. So if he asks for a reset, I'm just going to do my best to try to give it to him.
So as I've said before, Taylor is completely in the right to say, I don't want to see that side of you anymore. I don't like that. You were being abusive, literally, verbally abusive and scary to me. Calling me names, saying all those nasty things, that is just unacceptable. It's totally fine for Taylor to do that. And for the couple, Taylor and Brandon, to move through this, the way that they're doing this and the way that Pastor Cal was kind of recommending was that it's up to Brandon to control that behavior, to control ugly Brandon, as Brandon puts it. That is not likely to work. Because it's not as if Brandon said, I am going to try to make this situation miserable by flying off the handle and becoming verbally abusive. He probably didn't make a conscious choice to do that. My conceptualization, total speculation, he was triggered, his trauma, maybe even PTSD, but some kind of traumatic reaction, and then he felt very invaded or afraid or something was happening for him, and he came out swinging. And until Brandon has an understanding of that and can tell other people about that and assert that with other people, particularly Taylor, and Taylor hearing that and understanding that, then they can both as a team manage Brandon's trauma and his reactivity. But so far, Brandon has gone along with that narrative of just I just need to control that part of myself. That's probably not going to work. And I see this happen a lot in couples. They come into my office and they've had years of fighting about something. And I start sifting through the conflict, and then I discover one or both of them, often it's both, have traumas. And traumas could be things like physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, but it could also be things like just being in a family where things were a little cold. You weren't really attuned to enough. You were a little humiliated or rejected, or there was divorce and you didn't really know what was happening and the parents fought a lot. It can be quite mundane sorts of experiences that can make you feel very, very, very scared of certain things, certain associations, like maybe a camera in your face or an invasion of your privacy or something. And that reminds your body. It doesn't remind your conscious mind necessarily, but it reminds your body that is a threat. And unless you go into a mode of fight or flight, freeze or appease, then this is going to go badly for you. So I worry about Brandon and Taylor. They seem like a really great couple, a real cute couple, but I'm worried that they're not going to be able to see their way through this because they don't have a conceptualization of trauma. I hope that the marriage and family therapist can get involved and help them with that, because presumably she understands this.
He shows me over, the next however many weeks that he can be like how he was before.
Right.
Maybe our marriage can also heal itself. But I've been completely honest with him and told him, if you want to work towards something, I'm going to need to see a lot of change very quickly.
Good for you, Taylor.
Yeah.
Good for you for standing up.
So that's good.
So that's often the narrative that you'll get from the person who is in Taylor's position and from friends. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for yourself. Yeah, for sure. But you shouldn't be subjected to abuse. Stand up for yourself. And then what? Because I've worked with couples where one person was extremely abusive, much more abusive than Brandon has exhibited yet on this show. And yes, the victim deserves to not be abused. The spouse deserves to not walk around on eggshells and not be subjected to verbal threats, physical threats, this kind of thing. For sure. Okay, once you establish that, then what? We've got to get to the underlying issue as to what's being triggered in the abusive person so that we can manage it better. Until you do that, the trauma's not going to go away.
So I don't know if there's like two sides to you and I just don't know the other side.
I've apologized like 1,000 times and I'm sorry.
But it's also the fact that the way you handle this is what is going to determine how you're going to handle future problems.
My heart has always been in the right place. I think my focus was in the wrong place. It was more so like I'm stressed, I'm going through all of this stuff. And I lost my temper one day, you know? I think we all—
Was it one day?
It was one day, yes.
Okay, so they have every right to confront him about his abusive behavior. I think it's safe to call it abusive. I mean, he was calling people names, calling Taylor bad names. So it was at least verbally abusive, right? They have every right to do that. And then for Brandon, I worry so much about him because he doesn't seem to have an understanding of trauma. Most people don't. And his response to this is, I've apologized a bunch of times and I was stressed. You heard that word. I was focused on, let's hear that again, because I think this is critical to how rudimentary his understanding of his own trauma is, which is common, believe me. But he says, I was focused on my stress and then I lost my temper. If my conceptualization is correct, which who knows, it's not a matter of focus on your stress. Now, it could be a matter of focusing on certain things that are likely to trigger you, maybe.
Same time, it happened. It did happen.
It did happen.
So I'm just saying, like, it's not cool. Switch to another female.
With respect to Brandon, I'm Brandon's sounding board. I know everything that transpired. That's not him. It truly isn't. Brandon and I's demeanor are close, but he's more closer to my son, Justin. And at times it gets hard. He needs to step back and think and get himself together to regroup. Mm-hmm. And we've already had that conversation. I've spoken with Brandon extensively.
Okay, that's interesting. So was that his mom, one of his relatives, saying that he needs to get away to regroup? And I think what she's saying is when he's triggered, or the way I would say it is, when he's triggered, when his traumas are triggered, he needs to get his space so he can think, regroup, and then he can come back and then he's fine. So maybe that's Brandon's way of coping. When he felt invaded with the selfie video, it was hard for him maybe to get away because he's stuck in the honeymoon, suite situation. When he wanted to get 10 minutes alone because maybe he was being triggered by something, he just wanted to get away from the cameras and they wouldn't let him to go alone, then they weren't letting him engage in his coping strategy. So that's interesting to hear from his relative there.
And since he's been born, I have never, ever heard or even seen him.
I lost my cool and I said some things to her that I shouldn't have said to her, and I've apologized multiple times. When I apologized to the other couples, I understand what I did was wrong and I'm ashamed and not happy for my behavior and how I treated my wife.
And I told him he was wrong.
Yeah.
Good.
And he knew what he had to do, because if you're wrong, you're wrong. You're gonna fix it.
So kudos to Brandon for apologizing to Taylor a bunch of times and also to the other couples, which he was verbally abusive to them as well. Yeah, this is great. He's taking responsibility. We all make mistakes, and we see a lot of people on shows like this who don't take responsibility. And he's tolerating being grilled by everyone, which I'm guessing is also justified, and he seems to think that as well. So these are all great signs. And I wish someone would help him understand why he's being triggered so that he can actually understand not only how to deal with it in the moment without necessarily needing to get away, and how he can recover from trauma. Trauma recovery is one of the things that therapy does really well. If you've been traumatized, if you have visceral reactions, or you come out swinging in relationships, therapy can help. I've helped so many people with this. My colleagues have helped so many people with stuff like this. Therapy is really good for stuff like this. And I wish people utilize this more in this way. And I wish more therapists focused on trauma. A lot of therapists don't focus on it. They don't know that much about it. In my estimation, everyone has some trauma that they deserve to recover from. and everyone deserves to go to a good therapist for that. So there's just a lot of need for that.
You know, and when Brandon kind of blew up on me, I didn't go off on him because I've changed a little bit, and you know, we both can change together. You know, there's no stop to what change we can have. So that's how I feel. We're moving forward.
It felt like Taylor was sticking up for me, and I appreciate that. You know, I mean, it's been a rough few days, and the fact that she's thinking about me, and it just shows me that maybe we have turned that corner.
I'm guessing that's a big deal for Brandon, is that Taylor is in his corner. There's nothing wrong with Taylor saying, I don't want to see that behavior anymore, but I'm also guessing he also wants to feel like she cares and that she will give him the benefit of the doubt. And he's expressing a lot of vulnerability about that. Brandon's an interesting one because he seems so healthy in so many different ways. And then he does have this temper, which is so interesting to me. I wonder if we'll see more data on that as the show progresses.
It's temporary, and we can just go with the flow. And if you have issues, talk to me.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, how do you feel about that?
No, you're.
Do you want to talk to me? Don't just say I'm
course.
right. Just tell me how you feel. I know you feel like we keep talking about the same incident over and over again. Hopefully this is the last time, you know?
It would be nice, but it is what it is at this point.
So that's good. Taylor, I think, still has some hurt and concern about ugly Brandon, and she wants to bring it up, and that is totally understandable. And she's bringing it up in a very nice way. She's saying, hopefully we never have to talk about this anymore. She's kind of apologizing, but, you know, I still want to talk about it. I wish people would be more upfront about why. So for Taylor, if I was here as a couples therapist, I'd say, Taylor, it's great. And you open that conversation really nicely, and I can tell that you're really concerned about hurting Brandon's feelings. And that's fantastic that you're concerned. Why do you want to bring it up? Because I could imagine why, but I want you to be explicit with Brandon. Why do you want to talk about this again? My guess is that Taylor would say something like, well, I'm still worried it's going to happen. And frankly, I'm still hurt that he said those things. And I guess I'm looking for some reassurance that he doesn't really feel those things about me, because in that moment he was treating me like I was garbage. And I'm still kind of worried, is there still a part of him? So we get to the emotions, we get to those underlying concerns. And then it gives Brandon a chance to address each one of those. It's like, oh, okay, we're not just bringing this up to punish me, which often that's what it can feel like to people in Brandon's position. You're bringing this up because you still have concerns and you're still hurt. Okay, let me hug you. Let me tell you. Let me reassure you that, no, all those things I said were completely just ridiculous. They have nothing to do with the way I feel about you. Let me tell you how I do feel about you. You know, gives people a chance.
I guess I will just continue to ride with it.
I know, but I don't see it. I don't foresee it coming up anytime in the future again. So
That would be nice.
just give me something else to talk about that's all positive.
Sounds good to me. Taylor said she wanted to stop talking about it and move forward, but she's still talking about it. You know, still bringing it up, and it just doesn't feel like we had that reset. And it's frustrating because it's like, at what point do we allow me to move forward?
So this is something that I run into a lot with couples. One, for incidents like this, also for infidelity. I help a lot of couples recover from infidelity. And people in Brandon's position, they often are, because it feels bad to bring it up, there's like, can we just move on? Can't we just forget it happened and let's move forward? And that's a very common sentiment, which makes sense from Brandon's position. But the problem is that the couple hasn't fully explained to themselves and to Brandon what Taylor is going through. You know, I'm guessing Taylor has a lot of pain about and a lot of worry that's still around that needs to be addressed by Brandon and not just blown off. Brandon is right now saying, I don't want to talk about this. Can we just move forward? I've apologized. At some point, can't we just move forward? Because Taylor hasn't explained why she wants to bring it up. She's just bringing it up, hoping that Brandon, what she's hoping, I'm guessing, is like, I'm going to open up the conversation, and then Brandon will reassure me because I have feelings that are concerning and I have some pain. And if I bring it up, maybe he'll take care of me. Instead of being more forthcoming. Most people are like that. Now, Brandon could intuit that as well. Like, oh, she keeps bringing it up. I wonder why she keeps bringing it up. I bet you she's still hurt. I bet you she's still worried. Even though she's not being obvious about that, let me just assume that's the case and let me take care of those feelings. This is what a couples therapist can help people with. This is, I don't know. This might be 95% of what I do for couples is this very thing, is they'll give little indications to each other about what's going on for them that are massively misinterpreted by the other person. It triggers them. They come back. Because right now, Brandon's coming back with hostility. Just like, yeah, I need you to shut up about this. Let's move forward. That is like the opposite of what Taylor was hoping to get. And I slow people down and I'm like, okay, Taylor, tell us more about why you want to bring this up. Okay, Brandon, tell us more as to why you don't want to talk about this ever again. Because maybe Brandon is just like, well, I feel like she's just going to punish me for our entire lives, and she's just never going to give it up. Taylor, is that true? Taylor would be like, no, I just have some last residual feelings that I want to be addressed, and then I'll be able to move on. And if Brandon, you can address those feelings sufficiently, then I will be able to move on. Okay, Brandon, it's not for helping people to really understand each other, but people talk on this surface level. They trigger each other. Things go badly. Again, I have such high hopes for this couple, but this miscommunication worries me.
So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and let her work through this.
Like I told Pastor Cal, like I don't want the pressure of like expectations or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Well, as I always said, I will follow your lead. So.
No, don't follow I don't want. You always say that though. Like you always say like whatever I want to do or you'll follow my lead. Like this is like a us thing, and like I value your input, and it shouldn't be like what do I want to do all the time or like how do I want to be or what I say is always right. Like seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you.
No, I know, but I'm just...
Right. So if I'm intuiting correctly, what's happening is that Brandon is going, okay, if to get through this, I'm going to be subservient. Michael kind of does this too sometimes. He's like, I'll become subservient and I can be a nice guy, but I'm not going to really invest myself in it because I don't want to get hurt. And I don't know how to navigate through this conversation. So he's like, well, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. And then for Taylor, she's just like, well, that I'm guessing what that does for her on the inside is like, that doesn't really address my problem here. What I'm looking for is some reassurance that you're not going to do this. And I'm also looking for more apologies for the way you treated me. It was horrible. I still have a lot of hurt around that. But that's not what Taylor is thinking consciously, or it's not what she's saying. What she's saying is like, well, I don't want you to always agree with me, because she's focused on the surface of the conversation. Another way to put it would be for Taylor to be like, okay, I hear you saying you really want to agree with me, but I actually don't feel like you're really with me on the notion that you really, really hurt me a few days ago. And I really need, not a lot, but I just need some more apology or some more indication that you really care about. Do you care about me enough to actually like try not to do this in the future again? Sometimes you need a lot of reassurance about that sort of thing. So I'm a little worried about this conversation.
Like, I feel like, I don't know, you can tell me anything, say whatever.
Whatever you want to do, let's do it.
Don't say whatever I want to do.
I don't want us to be in this place. It sucks.
Great, Brandon. You don't want it to be in that place. Fantastic. The way to get out of it is not what you're doing, which is to put up a wall. Gottman talks to stonewalling and getting defensive. Reach out, just be like, okay, Taylor, what are you feeling right now? What do you want? Now, again, a couples therapist would really be able to help with this.
All right, cool.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining me. Please take care of yourself and take care of other people, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.